Welcome to Combat Sports Talk, a podcast dedicated to UFC and Bellator discussion, the MMA community, and combat sports in general. I'm your host, Ryan Smith, and joining me this week, as he does most weeks, is the man with the keys to victory, John Keys.
Hello, world. How's it going? Another beautiful week in January. It's cold. I can't say how cold it is, but it's cold. All right, trust me, it's cold. And yeah, let's do this.
All right. So here's the thing. So Casey was supposed to join us, but he is at a trade show in New York. And so he gave us a text. He's like, hey, I'm free. And then we found out he hadn't left the bar yet, and so now he's not free. So knock a few back for us, Casey, because we're going to talk about the UFC.
Man, he's free for that whiskey sour and that bourbon and Coke and that Jack Daniels and Coke.
No, he's more of a pina colada guy. That dude, strawberry daiquiri.
Oh. All right. That sounds good.
Nah, I'm just kidding. 2019 ushers in a new era in the UFC with the first fight on ESPN Plus this weekend. So if you go back 10 years ago, UFC and ESPN were more like frenemies, but after a 5-year deal worth somewhere in the $1 billion range, they besties now. Oh yeah.
Hey, it's nothing like a couple of zeros to make the friendship go smooth.
That's
okay?
right.
And
that's right. I mean, it was crazy because it was like, oh, I remember Dana White being like, oh, we don't need ESPN. They're blah, 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 blah. And now it's like, oh, yeah, the future of the UFC is set till 2024.
Oh, yeah. Hey, he said the same thing for EA Sports, and we saw how that went. Okay.
And he said the same thing about women never competing in the UFC.
Yes, that is true. And then he said John Jones would never headline another event as well. And yeah about that. Okay, yeah. So I think Dana is 0 for 14 right now for holding his word to anything. Okay, so yeah.
Well,
man.
Let's check out some of the new things that are popping up in the UFC, the headlines that are making waves in a segment we like to call Finding the Angles. Finding the Angles. This is Finding the Angles. This is where we look at the topics that are making waves in the UFC. The first thing we're going to talk about, the UFC announced their Best of 2018 awards, maybe we can call it that. But they announced Daniel Cormier, Fighter of the Year. And that's been pretty unanimous. I think at the ESPN ESPYs, they had him as Fighter of the Year. I think all across the board, maybe one outlet selected Amanda Nunes, but pretty unanimously, it was Daniel Cormier as Fighter of the Year. My question for you, how do you feel about that?
Earned and deserved. There isn't a fighter that I can think of more so that earned this accolade. He fought all the way from the bottom all the way to the top of the mountain. Been a clean fighter, all right. Except for the whole towel pulling incident, which I'm still out to lunch on. Tested clean so many times that pretty much you can eat off his test results. Just been a classy guy all the way around, okay? Except when a couple of incidents there where, it brought out when we say the worst in him or the competitive streak in him. I think it was more the competitive streak in him. But, yeah, all in all, classy fighter. Much respect to Daniel Cormier. Congratulations.
Well, I feel the same way. Daniel Cormier, he's been a classy fighter. He's a great color commentator. He's done a great job, with Fox or UFC on Fox and all of the analysts that he's done. I mean, everywhere that I've seen Daniel Cormier, I've seen excellence. I think that coming in there and being a two-weight champion, defending his light heavyweight championship, and then coming in and defeating Stipe Miocic, which, the UFC was trying to bill at the time that having defended the title 3 times, like that no other heavyweight championship had done, that Stipe Miocic was effectively the greatest UFC heavyweight champion ever with 3 title defenses. Daniel Cormier came in there, smashed him in the first round, and the rest is history. So I think that Fighter of the Year, I don't know. I don't know of another fighter that I would give that over Daniel Cormier. They had fight of the year: Robert Whittaker versus Yoel Romero 2. I can say that personally for me, it was a good fight, but I don't really remember it.
Same.
Yeah,
Um, I've seen bloodier affairs. I just think that the UFC took the best highlight reel that they have, which it was a good. I mean, is that the markings of a great fight? The ones that we can't remember that were so brutal that we just conveniently just you know lost out of our mind,
yeah.
or could we have something else?
Yeah, there were some other fights that were on the list that they also had ranked, but that was the number one fight for me. Further down on that list was Yoel Romero. I mean, not Yoel Romero, Yair Rodriguez, and the Korean Zombie. That elbow knockout was like, woo! I mean, that was a back and forth fight. They had Tony Ferguson and Anthony Pettis. Like that, I
That's a
think was a
good one.
great
That
fight.
should have been fighting that because that was a bloodbath on top of that,
Yeah,
and it was just savagery all the way through. That should have been fight of the year.
yeah, because I mean, at the end of the day, it's like we thought the whole time that Anthony Pettis' blood was, I mean, that it was Tony Ferguson's blood, the way Anthony Pettis was beating up on Tony Ferguson. And then we come back and it's like, oh, wait, that's all Anthony Pettis' blood. Oh.
And
So,
he's like turned complete savage in the middle of that round too. So I mean, yeah, we could argue. Could have been that they just want to give Robert Whittaker an accolade or something like that because he's a Kiwi fighter and this is he's pretty much I think he is the first Kiwi champion.
well, I don't know if
So
he's Kiwi. I think he's an Aussie. I think he's officially Australian.
is he okay? Because I could have swore that um he was I could swear he was. But hey, regardless, hey, we'll
Yeah,
go with
yeah.
Aussie.
No, I think he's Australian. Um,
Okay,
but they also had Dustin Poirier and Justin Gaethje.
that's a
Um,
good one.
they had Max Holloway and Brian Ortega.
That
I
was
don't think that
such.
was a great fight, though. That
I
was a
think
beatdown.
it was a great fight. It was really a great fight because it showed not only that Max Holloway has the chops to defend on anybody, but it shows that Brian Ortega truly has the heart of a warrior. Because there are some people out there that did have doubts about Brian Ortega, and that if he had the the testicular fortitude to
Yeah,
make it through that fight.
yeah,
And yeah, I think that fight right there shut up a lot of people to know that Brian Ortega was going to fight all the way through. So I can't wait for part two.
yeah. So I want to put this out to the fans who are watching this. What was your best fight of 2018? I don't feel like the UFC did this any justice by
Yeah.
putting in these fights. So I'm putting this out to the fans. What was your best fight of 2018? Just to round this out, they also picked a submission of the year: Ryan Hall versus BJ Penn. This was like right at the end of the year. I mean, this was like recency effect here. I think this is. It was a great submission, but submission of the year? It's
Yes,
awful
I will
convenient.
give it. I'll give it submission of the year just for the simple fact of who are the two people involved. Okay, a lot of people don't know Ryan Hall. Ryan Hall is a jiu-jitsu genius. Okay, and a jiu-jitsu genius just submitted a jiu-jitsu prodigy, and caught him clean, and caught him like it was his third day in class. Okay, yeah, that was if you understand the how important the fighters were beyond the mat, then yes, you would make that a submission of the year because that was a submission that one shouldn't have been able to put on the other, and the other shouldn't have gotten caught in. If you understand what I'm saying,
I
it was
got you.
yeah, it was beautiful.
Yeah, again, I feel like it's just a recency thing. Like, oh well, that
Hmm.
one would happen. It was a nice little roll, though. I mean, he basically rolled into the ankle lock, and it was like, oh wow, that okay. I'll give it to him because it's pretty slick.
Yeah, it was. It was a it
It
was
was
a
pretty
it was a
slick.
pretty slick, and it was like, did we just see BJ Penn get get a little flustered there? And did he forget his rolling training?
He
It's like
tapped
almost a
quick.
panic.
He
Yeah,
he
he
tapped
was
quick.
like, oh, and I'm out. Okay, and that
Yeah.
was it.
All right. So for those of you who don't know, go out and watch. Go search Ryan Hall versus BJ Penn submission, and you'll see what we're talking about. I think we can
Yeah.
give that submission of the year. I balked at the fight of the year, but I will give submission of the year to Ryan Hall versus BJ Penn. Let's kind of extend this. This is something that I'd saved for KC to talk about, so we'll just have to catch him with the heavy bag. But I want to. We kind of went back and forth about the role that Dana White has played in the success of UFC. So for KC, he has in conversations that he's had with me, and so I'm gonna leave him to speak about his own views on this. But I've felt as though he diminishes the role that Dana White has played in the success of the UFC, growing it from where it was back in the 90s to where it is today. And, even though he has been a person that has, alienated his fighters, who's been accused of underpaying his fighters, who's been accused of all kinds of dastardly deeds, I think that the reason why the UFC is valued as much as it is, the reason why it's almost synonymous with MMA right now, is because of the work that Dana White has done, both finding fighters, promoting talent, promoting fights, and creating a world-class production engine in order to make this sport a something that rivals some of our more traditional sports like football, basketball, and baseball.
Can we call Dana White the Don King of MMA? Because I can make a pretty good argument that yes, we can. Um, when the when Zuffa purchased the UFC, um, it was for millions, I believe. I think it was like maybe 12, somewhere between. It was a very low number, but it was in the millions.
Mm-hmm.
And from that point on, Dana White pretty much put that brand on his back and hustled it all the way up to where we are today. Okay, you're right. He did alienate a lot of fighters. Um, he did show his attitude a lot, but no, I don't think anybody should deny that. Yes, while it's the fighters that made the UFC, it was Dana that brought the cameras in front of those fighters. Okay, it was Dana that made that helped bring mold this monster that we are talking about today, that millions of people talk about today. Okay, so yeah, I give Dana his props. He deserves it. Okay, he has earned and deserved, and you know, he- as one person said it, and pardon my French, he's a son of a bitch, but he's our son of a bitch. Okay, and he made it work.
All right. Well, fortunately, this is a PG-13 podcast.
It could be. Hey. They said words on Ferris Bueller, sir. Okay, they
Okay.
said it. Okay,
Just
all right.
know, just know my kids listen to the podcast. All right.
All right.
Okay.
Well, sorry, kid.
So you had mentioned the fact that Dana White had, Zuffa purchased the UFC. You said 12 million. It's actually 2 million.
That's what I thought. I was either 2 or 12. So there you
$2 million. So think about it. They bought in the year 2000.
Oh my God.
They bought the UFC for $2 million and turned it into a $4 billion industry by the time WME IMG bought it. By the way, it's no longer called WME IMG. It's like called Eclipse or something like that.
Dang it.
What? 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 Okay. Anyway, so here's the thing. They sold they bought the UFC for 2 million. They sold it for 4 billion. I'm looking at an August 20 report from MMA Mania. Dana White claims UFC is now worth $7 billion. So it's definitely something that that is an amazing thing that they have done in the meantime of purchasing the UFC. So, what we'll do is we will move on to the next topic on this on the show, and that is Jon Jones is clean after UFC 232. John, are you with me? Okay, you're good. Okay, what are you disagreeing about? Because they ran the test. USADA ran the test. Jon Jones, whew, clean after UFC 232. 100% clean.
Okay. So I guess they quit using the NASA Hubble scope to find those picograms. I guess. Okay. As far as I'm concerned, it doesn't matter if he tests clean now. He's test positive 2 weeks later and test clean. No matter what he's done, okay, no matter what he accomplished, and let's put it out there, greatest fighter, could possibly the greatest fighter of his well, no, greatest fighter of his division, possibly the greatest fighter of his generation, arguably the greatest fighter the UFC has ever produced. Okay, but now he's set up he's tainted by supplemental use that he never truly said yes I did do it. Okay, then he sets up the narrative that it could be in my system for the next 7 years. So now whenever he gets they show up, he's dirty again. What they're gonna say? Oh well, this is residual from back in then. No, I cannot agree with that. I will not agree with that, and it just doesn't matter to me anymore. Okay, because no matter what we say, it's like the rules are going to be bent for him. If we want to be truly fair, okay, one of two things need to happen. Either A, he stays suspended until he can. Well, no, one thing. Now that I'm thinking about it, he stays suspended until he can pass 6 tests fully with no problem. That's how you. That's how you can convince me.
Okay, so you brought up the conundrum that I was running into, and that is now that he's clean, what does that mean for the rest of the UFC and any other fight that he has? Because I agree with you with that point that he was clean and then he wasn't clean, and we're like, oh, it's picograms, and he's like, oh, that's a pinch in an Olympic-sized swimming pool, and then he was clean and then he wasn't clean, and now he's clean again. So it's like, okay, you have a clean slate. We're going to let you by and say, okay, Alexander Gustafsson lost to a clean fighter. Jon Jones is a legitimate light heavyweight champion, although he didn't beat Daniel Cormier to get it.
Exactly.
Notwithstanding. However, if in his next fight, which is, I guess, Anthony Lionheart Smith from Factory X.
Did you just see? You did it. You did it. You still rep Factory X, even though he's not here.
Listen, I am trying to get Anthony Smith on this show. Like, I want Anthony Smith on this show. I want him talking about how weak KC is in training.
We could do that. Okay, that's legit. All right, we'll go with that.
So, but here's the thing. Here's the thing that's important to me about this. Mm-hmm. If we get some more picograms, I don't know how to process that, and I felt your frustration whenever it came to, well, does that mean that it can be residual in his body for 7 years? There's something fishy to me when you can have a clean test and then immediately pop with X number of picograms in a subsequent test. And so now we've established the baseline. You are clean. So if you are not having any other things, you should logically be clean. And maybe we just don't understand this Turinabol well enough to understand how it comes back and forth. But it just doesn't seem like it should do that. And so if he gets popped again, I'm going to think that he's a dirty fighter. So I hope that he's not. But I don't know I don't know how to react to that.
Man, Maya Angelou said it best. Once a person shows you who they are, believe them. Okay, when I was in the military, it was a simple test. It was either pass or fail. Okay, if you pass, you pass. If you fail, you fail. Okay, and right now John Jones has failed, and now he's passed. It sounds like to me, and I don't need to know the science behind it to understand that if it appears and then it disappears and then it reappears again, that just shows that it's not truly out your system, and you really shouldn't be fighting in the first place.
All right. The one thing that I do have to say about this is the fact that in most cases, when you start looking at the Olympics is sets a minimum amount of chemical that can be in your body at
Hmm.
like 2 nanograms. Picogram is less than a nanogram. So theoretically, if this was Olympic fighting, it shouldn't be adverse result because of the fact that the standard is less than I think 2 nanograms. You know, it takes 2,000 picograms to hit that, and John Jones has been under that. The UFC just doesn't have a minimum. It's I guess so it's zero, and so because
Right.
it's zero, then any residue results in an adverse reaction. So a better question that I have for you is, do you think that the UFC should set minimums greater than zero, so 2 nanograms, if you will, as a minimum amount of turinabol that should be in a person's system? And part two to that question is, when they set a minimum, does that mean that there are athletes who will now try to microdose or do something to get as much of an advantage as they can under that 2 nanograms? I'll leave it to you.
All right. So to answer your first question, yes, there needs to be some sort of standard set because if you're not going to follow the pass fail, then you need to set a better standard. Setting it to U.S. Olympic standards, that's not a bad idea. Okay, that's actually kind of great. Okay, set the standards see what standards they have set for wrestling, for boxing, for taekwondo, and look at those and say, okay, we can set the standards to this level. Now, second part of your question, will they basically and effectively, and anybody who's ever played a role playing game will understand this term, will they min max? Meaning they'll go as close to the maxing that they can without going over. Yes, there are going to be fighters that are going to do that. That if you give them an inch, they will take that inch. Okay, easily. We've seen that happen before when it came to the weigh-ins. That fighters will try and adjust their schedules to get the maximum benefit they can to coming in that weight, and it wasn't working. Okay, that's why we had a lot of fighters coming in overweight and so that whole little time period there.
Mhm.
So yeah, be prepared to see that happening. Okay, that we're going to see people coming in there that's going to go right up to that limit of 2 nanograms and not go over. So I thought, and I could have sworn though that the UFC was going to adopt new rules about letting the public know when a fighter get busted. Like they weren't going to let anybody know. I thought they were
Yeah,
doing that.
yeah, they did. That basically what they said is that because of the fact that being tried in the court of public opinion says that if you get popped and they tell the public that you had adverse result on your test, then they weren't going to communicate that to the public because the public will automatically assume that you're guilty. And so some of the false positives that they had with like Junior Dos Santos and Josh Barnett, those are those examples of fighters having their reputations dragged through the mud on a false positive because it's a science, but it is not a perfect science. And so therefore what ends up happening is that sometimes there's a false positive, sometimes there's a different explanation than a fighter trying to cheat, and by telling the public the moment they popped, then people automatically assume that they're trying to cheat.
Hmm.
So that's why they decided to do that. But the reason why they told us about John Jones's adverse testing result was because Nevada was like, whoa, you guys are supposed to be clean, and this is an adverse result. We're not going to sanction this fight. And so the UFC had to explain why they are moving the fight from Nevada to Los Angeles. And so that's how come we found out about it. And that's why turinabol and picograms are part of our lexicon now, because of the fact that, frankly, because we don't understand this chemical and how it affects the body in small doses, and Nevada taking the safety precaution to not sanction a fight that they weren't sure was going to be fair.
And just to put a side note on there was one fighter, and I want to say it was Josh Thompson. Don't quote me on this, but he said that he was given a 2-year suspension for 17 picograms of a banned substance.
Well, there you have it. There you have it. Let's move on. So the next thing that I want to talk about is something that happened very briefly. UFC fans lose their minds after Joanna Jędrzejczyk tags one championship on Instagram, and then she deletes it. So she basically took a selfie, or someone took a picture of her. She posted on Instagram, and then she tagged one championship. So why is this a big deal? This is a big deal because of the fact that Joanna Jędrzejczyk, having lost twice to Rose Thug No Hair Namajunas, and then losing the 125-pound strap to Valentina Shevchenko, Joanna Jędrzejczyk has no place to go. She can't keep fighting these 115-pound fighters that she's already beaten. She's already beaten Claudia Gadelha. She's already beaten, who else? Carla Esparza. She's already beaten.
You name it, she's beat.
She's
almost
beaten
she cleared
Jessica
them out.
Andrade. She's beaten them. She's beaten everybody. The only person at strawweight that she hadn't beat is Rose Thug No Hair Namajunas, and she's already lost twice. So she can't get that fight. She got dominated by Valentina Shevchenko. So it makes a lot of sense that Joanna Jędrzejczyk would start courting and start negotiating with ONE FC, where she could have a new life and a new career and not be just a gatekeeper.
Yeah, I mean that's what it sounds like that she's doing. That she just wanted to, throw it out there, a little sneak pass, if you will. Not necessarily a sneak diss to the UFC, because the UFC has bent over backwards for her.
Yeah.
Okay, so this would be like, oh God, I hate to say it, she's about to do a TJ Dillashaw and jump ship without, and to be like, oh yeah, I'm still going to be here. I'm still going to be here, and then leave, go to one.
Was that, that would be Joanna Jędrzejczyk?
That was my worst Joanna Jędrzejczyk, JJ, Boogie Woman. Yes, that was my worst one. My worst impression. Yeah. She calls herself the Boogie Woman, dude. What can I do?
She's the queen. But it's time for the queen to find a new kingdom. Because there's nothing left in the UFC for her. And it's unfortunate because she is one of the great fighters, great female fighters in the UFC. But she's in this place where I don't think she should fight any more 125-pounders. Not that there are more than a couple. There's just a handful. But going back and refighting Claudia Gadelha after she fought Claudia twice, refighting Jessica Andrade, refighting Carla Esparza, I mean, it's like, why? Why? No one cares.
Well, see, maybe she needs those fights to build up her confidence again. There's nothing that builds up better confidence than beating the crap out of some people. A couple of people get your confidence back. Maybe you do go back for a third try against, Thug Namajunas. And I'm really messing up these names tonight. And, just try it again. And if she fails, okay, ONE FC, here I come. To be a force of nature over there.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a possibility. So, I don't know if you, I don't know. It's not, none of those fights are very interesting to me. I personally think that Joanna Jędrzejczyk should go to ONE FC and have a new life there. It's kind of like Demetrius Johnson. except the fact that, yeah, Demetrius Johnson, what's he going to do? Go up to 130, go up to 135, fight those guys?
Yeah.
Those guys are way bigger than him. Fighting guys he already beat. The only person that that he's even split with is Henry Cejudo, who was trying to move up to 135. So it's like there's nothing for DJ there. There's nothing for JJ there. If your last name ends in J, then ONE FC is interested.
Apparently.
All right. So next on the list, this comes from Pop Culture. UFC star Holly Holm files for divorce.
Man, I think KC is happy for that. I think he is.
I don't know. I can't say. But no, we never want to celebrate the loss of a relationship. Divorce is a terrible thing.
Absolutely.
We definitely understand that there are reasons and needs for people not to be together, because sometimes you're better apart than you are together. So I want to be able to, on a serious tip, not, celebrate divorce. However, there are a lot of people who would probably line up to try to soften that blow for Holly Holm.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of guys who are going to be there for him, guys and girls. Apparently, they're going to be there for her.
So, but yeah, so
she'll leave that alone.
She's also looking to change her name, because I guess legally her name is Holly Holm Kirkpatrick, and she just wants to be Holly Holm. I didn't know that. So she actually hyphenated the name, and so she's wanting to drop it off at the dash.
Dropping it off on the curb and keep it rolling.
Yeah, to the left. All your stuff to the left.
Man, well, I hope that they can make it past this, and find some common ground there to try and be cordial at least, because
there's no kids.
Breaking up, yeah, that's true. But breaking up still sucks, man. Okay,
I can imagine.
Breakups suck.
I can imagine. But yeah,
you've never had your wait. You never had your heart broken, sir. You know?
I have. It was just 8th grade.
Oh my God! And ladies and gentlemen, thank you and good night. All right,
there you go.
Don't give me that.
No, it's true.
8th grade.
It's true. What? Okay, it's true. Yeah, 8th grade. We don't have to get into it on the show.
And that's the reason why my system crashed. Okay,
because it was in the 8th grade. Heart ripped out. Had me writing angry poetry in 8th grade. Yeah, and then I basically married my first real girlfriend. So there you go. Whoop. That's what you get for going to Baylor. So anyway, let's move on. The UFC put on a lot of shows in 2018. They put on 474 fights. Actually, there we go. We put on 474 fights in 2018, 87 hours, 21 minutes, and 11 seconds. This comes from MMAJunkie.com. I went back when I was checking back at the history between the UFC and ESPN. I found an article where they were concerned that the UFC having 20 fights was going to saturate their market, having 20 fights. Now they're at 474 fights.
Yeah, have them cookies. Yeah.
474 fights, that has to be multiple cards, because it's not 474 cards, but 474 individual fights. But still, having 20 cards, if we average 5 fights on a card, then that's 100 that's 100 fights. So 474 fights, that's 4 times the amount that's on the that's on the card. So my question for you, John.
Yeah.
Did you watch all 474 fights, all 87 hours? It's like 2 weeks worth of fights. No, 2 work weeks worth of fights.
2 work weeks worth of fights. I would say I was there for a good chunk of that. Okay, I would say
Wow.
I was there for a good chunk of that. If not the first showing of it, I'm pretty sure I got the maybe second or maybe the second the rewind to it. I've
Mhm.
watched that much,
All
so
right. Well, and that's why you are a walking encyclopedia of fights. Who, when you lean
apparently.
in, when you lean into the camera, you turn dark.
It is the knowledge within.
Yes.
Good. That's what it
Yes.
is.
Oh my gosh. So,
Oh,
last story. Colby Covington
I,
is having a beef with Dana White for booking Woodley versus Usman. It has been on the Twitterverse. It's been in Instagram. It's been in the news. Everywhere you go, you hearing Colby Covington belly aching about how Dana White has snubbed him and how he wants to be cut. I want to get your reaction. What do you think about Colby Covington and his hissy fit about not getting the title shot that he thought he was promised?
that's very appropriate. That you call it the hissy fit because that's exactly what he does. I mean, when you have beef, I heard that wine goes really good with it. And apparently, Kobe's got a lot of red wine because he supports Trump. Trump is a Republican. Republicans' traditional color is red. So beefing with red wine that works for me. And on top of that, like Drake said, if we beefing, you beefing alone. And I don't think Dana White really cares. I think I think honestly he's like, okay, little child, go sit in the corner. And personally, I think at this point, um, we should start a GoFundMe to fund somebody to beat him up. Okay, I can't say the true words because, of course, this is a PG-13 show and your
Thank
kids
you.
watch it. Yes, but we need to go ahead and start up a GoFundMe and yeah, I think we can if they can fund a wall, we can fund a fight. Okay, and just it don't matter where it's at, be it the parking lot, the gym, back of a steak and ale, somewhere. Okay, just somewhere, just to get this over with, because he's asking for somebody to whoop his butt. Please, somebody go out there and whoop his butt.
Well, this is what I don't understand about Colby Covington.
Hmm.
Yes, he wants the fight. Yes, he wants to be he wants to hold the title. They've already stripped him because he didn't fight in September. He said
Right.
he was under all kinds of medications because of his surgery or whatever, and so he couldn't fight then. So okay, I give that to you that you couldn't fight then, but you're getting stripped because, frankly, you had a chance. You let Darren Till go in there and get his head knocked off when you could have fought for the title to unify the title. So now that you've been stripped, you are no longer the number one contender. You know, Kamaru Usman had to fight his way from the bottom all the way to the top. And then when he put on a dominant performance versus Rafael dos Anjos, something that you also did, speaking to Colby Covington, that
Hmm.
that got you in that number one position, why wouldn't that also get Kamaru Usman in that number one position, given the fact that you were no longer the interim title holder? So
Exactly.
so then it's like, why are you mad? Because the fact is that there is no one else to fight but you. If
Exactly.
Woodley wins the fight against Kamaru Usman, there is no one left to fight but you, Colby Covington. If Kamaru Usman wins the fight against Tyron Woodley, the first fight that they're going to want to have is you, Colby Covington.
But see,
So why be mad? I don't get it.
look at the strategy of it all. Okay, if Usman and Woodley fight, and then they fight Kobe, Kobe only gets one fight out of that. But if Kobe goes and fights Woodley or Usman first, and then goes after the other one, he gets two fights. That's two big money fights for him.
Well, I
He's
think
crying because of the money.
I think you're right on that, because the other part that I didn't mention is the fact that Kamaru Usman and Tyron Woodley are on the card of the year, Saturday, March 2nd, UFC 235, where if John Jones can get sanctioned,
and
at the
be clean.
T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas, Nevada, then you've got a fight that has Holly Holm,
Hmm.
recently divorced Holly Holm, versus Aspen Ladd. You've got Diego Sanchez versus Mickey Gall. You got Tisha, the Tiny Tornado Torres versus Weili Zhang. Jeremy Stevens versus Zabit Magomed-Sharapov. You got Robbie Lawler versus Funky Ben Askren. You got
Finally.
Tyron Woodley versus Kamaru Usman. And then you could have headlining the fight John Bones Jones versus Anthony Lionheart Smith. John's fight at the end of the year did 700,000 buys. That's the money fight. That's the one you want to be on. That's why Colby Covington is pissed off. It's not because he got leapfrogged. It's because the fight where Tyron Woodley's actually going to defend his title is on the card of the year.
Yes. That makes all the sense in the world. And, that's a card of a lot of anger beating right there. There's going to be a lot of anger beatings before it's all said and done. And the fact that poor little Kobe Covington ain't getting no parts of that, he should be mad at himself. Honestly. He should be mad
this card
at himself.
is so deep. You got Ovince St. Preux versus Misha Cirkunov. You got Cody Garbrandt on this card versus Pedro Munoz.
I mean, these are and that's in preliminaries,
this is
right?
Like
that's
prelims. You're prelims at this point.
Yeah, that's a fight night. Okay.
Yeah, listen, I'm gonna put on the calendar now, so I got a shared calendar, right?
Ooh.
And look
at them. Yeah, I saw that product placement. Yeah,
product placement on everything. So I got a shared calendar, and it's with my wife, and so whenever there's a card like this one, I'm like, do not disturb me on this date. And I try to put it as far as in advance as possible. So I'm going to put on my calendar, like, do not schedule work on this day. Do not schedule me to do anything on this day. Expect me to be gone early to get a good seat. I'm setting up all the stuff so that we can record with George G. Money Stallworth. And I am going to be there in the front row for this card. I am so excited about that.
I don't blame you. Good luck on that, sir.
All right. Let's get into the official decision, because we got to look at this UFC on ESPN Plus, the first fight of the new ESPN era. So let's go into the official decision.
The official decision.
This is the official decision. This is where we look at the, what does it mean, the official decision? What am I doing? This is supposed to be the fight card. Like, I did all this setup, and I was going to see
how far you're going. I'll see how far you're going to go with that. I'll just let that. Why do you think I was nodding my head like, yep, this is going to be interesting. Let's see how he does it.
See, it's supposed to be the fight card. So
it's the fight card.
It's the fight card. Forget the fact that we said official decision. This is the fight card. The fight card is where we look at the fights that are coming up. The official decision is when we look at the fights that just happened. So
yes,
we'll be looking at the official decision when we come back on the next show.
Yes.
So this is the fight card. This is where we're looking at the fights that are coming up on ESPN Plus. So if you're spending $4.99 a month, you should be able to get this fight and watch Glover Teixeira versus Carl Roberson, Paige Van Zant versus Rachel Ostovich, Joseph Benavidez versus Dustin Ortiz, Gregor Gillespie versus Yancy Medeiros, Greg Hardy, former Dallas Cowboy defensive end, versus Alan Crowder, and as the main event, Henry Cejudo, the last flyweight champion, versus TJ the Snake Dillashaw.
Ooh, dang! Is he? Yeah, he's embracing that too. He's actually embracing. He's got a tattoo, and yeah, he's calling himself that. And that's not exactly a flattering thing to say about yourself. But is what it is. Awesome card though.
It's a great card. They've done a really good job. There's so much to say on this one. We should flash fight pick. I think the only one that we'll really have trouble with. We won't really have trouble with any of these, but I think we flash fight pick them all. Are you good with that?
Let's do it.
All right, Glover Teixeira versus Carl Roberson.
I like Glover.
All right. I'm going to go against you on this one. I'm going to go with Carl Roberson. His last fight, I was super impressed. He did an amazing job. I think Glover is starting to get a little bit old. And so I think this is one of those changing of the guards. Carl Roberson for the unanimous decision victory.
Okay, we'll see. I think Glover still got a little bit, but you might be right. He might be heading the way of the Iceman. So
Yeah.
it's just that is his teacher. That is I think his teacher is the Iceman, or he's the protege of the Iceman, Chuck
All right.
Liddell.
Paige Van Zant versus Rachel Ostovich. This is one where we unanimously agreed that Paige Van Zant taking this fight and choosing to fight Rachel Ostovich, who is still healing from the brutal attack alleged that her husband did back in, I think, November.
Yeah.
November 18th, I think was the date. That this woman who had a broken orbital, who basically ran from her house naked trying to escape a domestic abuse, is stepping into the octagon against Paige Van Zant. I don't know how Paige Van Zant is able to have this fight knowing that this woman went through the trauma that she did such a short time ago.
You can look at it one of two ways. There's one side of me that sits there and says that she probably had a conversation with Ostovich, and Ostovich was like, "Look, we're going to do this. Okay, I want to put this past me. I want to fight me, or I'll find somebody else to fight me." And then there's the other side of me that's not so nice, is saying that Paige is doing this because she's thinking it might be a good, easy victory for her. And I don't think so, because one thing, there's something tells me that Ostovich is going to come in there and she's going to try and destroy Van Zant. She's probably, there's a part of me thinks that she's got some anger and some rage within her about the situation that has happened to her, and she's going to project it there. And it might work, it might not work. We're just going to wait and see. I think this is going to go to the distance. It's going to be a decision victory. I don't think it's going to work for Paige, though. Something tells me it's not going to work for Paige.
So you're going with Rachel?
With Ostovich. Yes, I'm going with Ostovich.
Okay, so here's my thing. I'm going with Rachel as well, just on principle. I have been squarely in the Paige Van Zant. I've ridden the hype train for a very long time, but KC has railed and railed against the fact that Paige Van Zant really isn't that great a fighter. If she wins, I don't really give her credit because for points that I've already made, and if she loses, then I think that it just goes to show that she's not that great a fighter. I mean, this is someone who plays very well for the cameras, for the UFC, that it's definitely someone that you want to see carrying the brand for you. But when it comes to actually getting in the ring and showing some expert mixed martial arts skill, there's lots of better fighters out there. So I'm going to go with Rachel for all those reasons. Joseph Benavidez versus Dustin Ortiz. You're giving any heat to Dustin?
It's hard for me to do it, but I'm going to. I'll give him a chance on this one. We're gonna see. I'm saying it's gonna go split decision, and I'll give it to Ortiz.
Well, that'll be bad news for Joseph Benavidez, because he's kind of been iffy. I don't know what his current, his last few fights are, but I'm thinking that if Joseph Benavidez actually loses this fight, this may be his swan song versus leaving. Yeah, I'm thinking that he may be leaving. I'm checking his record right now. So
right on.
We start looking at events results. He won versus Perez, lost versus Sergio Pettis. Did he beat Henry Cejudo?
What?
Back in 2016. Has it been that long since Benavidez fought? Really?
I think it might have. Wow.
No, this can't be right. The UFC, man. Okay, all right. I'm getting ready to
See,
get.
this
I'm
is
ready
why
to
you
get
can't. All right,
You
go
can't. I
ahead.
gotta go to Sherdog, man. You know what the UFC has done? They have removed all references to Demetrius Johnson because Demetrius Johnson beat Joseph Benavidez twice, and it is
Oh
not on his
yeah,
UFC page.
because of contractual obligations or Dana's being petty. All right, take your pick.
Why would you be petty on this? This is what I don't understand.
Dude, just because it was a good decision on face value, dude, does not mean it's a decision you're gonna like. Okay, you know. And plus, and let's put it out there, Dana. We knew he had to go because he was beating everybody.
Man, this is interesting. I can't believe that the UFC took all references to Dana to Demetrius Johnson off. So Joseph Benavidez did beat Alex Perez, lost to Sergio Pettis. Wait, yeah, okay, there we go. Back in 2013, he lost to Demetrius Johnson, and man, it seems like it was sooner than that. Like I'm looking at his record, and I'm like, oh well, actually Joseph Benavidez has had, in his last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, he's only lost one of his last 8. So yeah, I take it back, Joseph. I got your back on this one. I'm picking Joseph Benavidez to win this fight. Got it? Gregor Gillespie versus Yancy Medeiros. I'm thinking that this is going to be another good a good scrap. This fight. Let me get you back on there. There you go.
Yeah.
This fight is going to be a good fight. Anytime Yancy Medeiros fights, it's a good fight. So,
yeah.
So I'm picking Yancy Medeiros. Who you got?
I got Yancy Medeiros as well. This is going to be a dynamic fight. It's going to be a good one. I expect. Do I get TKO second round? Do I want to do TKO second round? Yeah, I'll do TKO second round. Medeiros.
All right. Greg Hardy steps into his UFC debut against Alan Crowder. Does this go past the first round?
No.
You got Greg Hardy, or are you crazy? Okay.
Wow, it's the first time you rooted for a Cowboy. Look at that.
Former Cowboy. So, yeah, I mean, they traded him. They traded Romo. I'd have rooted for Romo. So, yeah. Greg Hardy, I got your back on this one. I'm waiting for Greg Hardy versus Derek Lewis. That's the fight I want to see.
Oh,
so
God.
we both got Greg Hardy. And in the main event of the evening, Henry Cejudo versus TJ Dillashaw. This is basically a wrestler versus an elite striker. The question is, who's going to have their way? Is Henry Cejudo going to be able to get TJ Dillashaw down, or is TJ just going to be too fast, too strong, and too elusive to keep Henry Cejudo from executing the takedowns?
If TJ had went to Cejudo, to his weight division, and challenged him, it would be one thing. I would give it to Cejudo. But because Cejudo is going on TJ's
No.
What?
TJ Dillashaw is going down to Cejudo's.
I thought Cejudo was going up to TJ.
Mm-mm.
Well, then I give it to Cejudo. Okay, I give it to Cejudo. You're going to his playground. You're going to get beat. You're going to get beat on his playground.
I'm going to tell you like this.
Mm-hmm.
Henry Cejudo shouldn't even be the champ right now. He stole the fight from Demetrius Johnson. You don't lay and pray. You don't score a takedown and lay and pray and expect to beat someone who outstruck you. You just shouldn't be able to do that. And
now, before you finish that thought, did he steal that fight, or was that fight given to him? Think about that before we go any further. All right.
Okay, so if I'm gonna be honest about the language that I'm using, then Henry Cejudo was given that fight.
Thank you. Thank you. He was granted the championship.
He was granted the championship. And so, therefore, I'm going TJ Dillashaw because I'm still upset about the injustice that took the crown from Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson. As far as I'm concerned, I'm going scorched earth on this. I hope TJ Dillashaw wins. I hope the entire flyweight division is raised and that they just get rid of it. And there's no more 125-pound fighters in the UFC, and that Henry Cejudo has to either fight at 135 or go to ONE FC to get beat in front of fair judges in Asia.
Pride. I'm just gonna say you want the whole division to be raised and burned to the ground because they got rid of their illustrious leader.
No, they got rid of my number one guy, and then the UFC has gone and just wiped all the references off. I gotta go back and check because let me be fair to the UFC. Let me be fair to the UFC because the fact is that I may not have gone back far enough to see Demetrius Johnson. So that's the thing, is that it's very possible that I didn't go back far enough and it's still there. I just didn't go back far enough. So I'm going to check. This is me being fair and doing the right thing.
Fair and balanced, sir.
Fair and balanced. Like this is not, we are not partisan here. Okay, so I'm going back to his career. Load Moore, 2016. 2015. See, I didn't go back far enough. I just stopped at Morega. Yes, okay, so they kept Demetrius Johnson. So all that stuff I said, I take it back. I'm sorry, UFC. I just hadn't gone back far enough. In my memory and my recollection of Joseph Benavidez' career, it was that Joseph Benavidez had his tail handed to him by Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson way sooner than way later in his career than he actually did. So, yes, there's the defeat right there. I just can't believe that Joseph Benavidez beat Henry Cejudo. I didn't know that.
I'm going to have to look for that fight. I'm glad to see what actually happened.
Yeah, he has a win. December 3rd, 2016. He won by decision. 3-round fight. There you go.
Huh.
Boom.
Who's the ref? Who's the ref for that?
I don't know. They don't say. You don't say.
You don't say. Sounds like Eve Levine. Anyway.
All right. Anyway. Well, that is it. Do you have anything else you want to say before we leave the show?
I'm gonna pan to my right here and take it a little bit. Is it just a white screen?
Oh, there it is.
There it is. Look at that. Coming soon. There shall be a fight. There will be a fight. Just want you to let you know that it's gonna happen.
You got it working at your house. That's what you got. Yeah, all you've done is proven that you've got it working at your house. You have not got it working where I am there. So, folks, if you haven't been following the show, John has talked tremendous smack about how he could beat me at Street Fighter 2, which that's crazy talk. That's crazy talk. And so he has tried 4 times to you can show me a controller. It's got to work when I'm holding it. So he's tried 4 times to beat me.
We have tried.
But there's always been some kind of lame excuse. I'm in the hospital.
Oh, yeah. I'm in the hospital. I'm ready to lose my toe or something like that.
Yeah, that's why I can't do it.
Yeah, something like that.
So now John says that he's got a setup with controllers and everything. So he says he's got it set up. We will have the fight. I will make an announcement. I will go live before we do this. And then after it's done, I'm going to just take a picture of your little sad face. Your sad face.
It's going to be sad because I felt so bad beating somebody I actually like. Okay,
Chun-Li
God. I'm like,
the
man.
win.
Okay.
So
we'll see.
So John plays with Vega. I am Chun-Li, and so we will finally have the match. Took 5 times. This is like Tony Ferguson and Khabib Nurmagomedov. We're gonna finally have it. It's gonna be the 5th time is the charm.
I think we ought to tag them in it. We ought to tag them on the video and say, hey, at least we got our fight off. What about y'all? We should do something like that. And then they drive up on us, and then I'm gonna be like, I'm sorry, sir.
All right, let's get out of here. So follow us on social media. On Twitter, I'm at CST Ryan.
Keys with the ES.
All right, we're on SoundCloud, Facebook, Instagram. We're on all of that. Our theme music is composed by Scott McCurry at scottdeancountry.com. Casey Onyebuchi produced our lead-ins. I want to thank you for joining us for another edition of Combat Sports Talk. For Casey Onyebuchi, what am I saying, Casey Onyebuchi? He's not even here. For John Keys, I'm Ryan Smith.